executive board meeting we had, Chris had to report to the executive board. And we were completely, the board was completely involved in this thing. And then the last step I did was when he had all his globe people from all around, finally he had created his team. I told to the team very clearly, look, this is not a project that we might perhaps win or not win. We are going to win that.
Right.
Because this is going to be my legacy for the company. And you have to help me to establish a good legacy and not a bad one. So I basically put my legacy into this one project.
So your fate was in their hands?
My fate was in their hands, and you have to help me out here. I mean, you have to really help me that this succeeds. I think this was, also from an emotional part, I would say, I think this was very important.
Yeah, just to build on that too, I think that is clearly the key success factor. And when I talk to my peers in other companies, they're very jealous of this type of clear top support and commitment and leadership. And it's not just from Peter's side, and that's true what Peter has said, and that's very clear. But amongst the entire executive board and the leadership of this company, it's united that way. And I think an organization can smell, can sniff if there really are people, they're doubters or not believers. And that's the reason why it's worked. I mean, it hasn't been perfect all the way through, clearly. But it's this type of support which has kept it moving.
So just to drill down on that a little bit more, what would you say is the single biggest hurdle? And I'd love both your perspectives. Single biggest hurdle to the project and how you got over it.
You want to start?
Yeah, I can. Let's see, which one do I start with here? I think like I said, the key platform was set when Peter has put his commitment forward on this. I think the next big hurdle really came in making sure to get not just the minds but also the hearts of the market management and the people involved. And as I talked about earlier, I think we did that through involving them. Right. I mean, I think that people are not adverse necessarily to change, but they like to be a part of it if change is going to happen. So not only did they send their people to design Globe, but also when Globe is implemented in the markets, when we put in the processes, the data, and the systems, it's the markets which are responsible for it. And that's why I'm saying it's their project. They own it. They pay for it when they put it in.
Right.
And which I think is very important. So make sure we do it not just well, but also we do it efficiently. And I think getting that buy-in and so on was really a key point in the success. Another thing also I think was an acceptance from Peter and the executive board and from the group that things would not be perfect. I talk to other people in my role in other companies, and there's somehow this quest for perfection. It will never happen. And you still need to move ahead and forge ahead. Learn from the mistakes, learn, and then move forward. So we move with speed. I mean, what we've accomplished from our first go live in 2002 to the end of 2006 with 100,000 users, 500 factories is unprecedented. And that could only be done really with really a push for speed and not for perfection.
I think the biggest hurdle is the success of a company. You see, we are a very, very successful company. And you have to convince people.
Why change?
Why should you take such a risk?
Right.
Don't forget that many people have tried before to introduce a small part of what Globe is here. And here we were saying we're going to do that at our complexity level, from starting of the salesman, going through all procurement, all through factory management, distribution management, I mean, accounting, human resource. Why the hell you want to go through such a risk?
And what did you tell them?
I told them very simple. I said, if you want to be successful in the future, you have to change. You will not be successful in the future if you are doing what you have been doing in the past. But this fear, this enormous fear, which, by the way, is not only internal, because, frankly speaking, during at least 4 or 5 years, we had a discount on our share price because of Globe. And you have to accept that. Because the analysts, if you look back into the reports who wrote about it, considered this to be one of the biggest risk factors for this company. They were afraid of business interruption. Yeah? They were thinking that this company will be out of business for months, and this would have an enormous impact. So it is the success that you come in the past which is the biggest obstacle really to do a change.
You can't let it
if
be
you are in a
made.
crisis, I wouldn't have even thought about it so easy. If you're in a crisis, it's easy.
Right.
If you are successful, this is the biggest hurdle for really profound change.
That's fascinating. Let's talk a little bit about results. You said, Chris, that it's been embraced in about 80% of the business units. What are you seeing? How is it transforming the business? I'll start with you, Peter. What's your perspective on that?
Well, I must say I'm extremely happy because, as I said, as it is...
That's very good for Chris. That you're changing.
Well, as a matter of fact, you see, I'm so happy that I've already promoted him into the next job. So
He'll be running your
he will be running
operation.
in his operation. So I think this is certainly the best promotion that I can give him, and recognition for what he has been doing in this project. So very clearly, I'm very happy because first of all, with 80% of this company running on Globe now, and having two successive years of outstanding organic growth. I mean, we were 6% last year. We were 6% more or less this year. This is really, I mean, the combination of both show that Globe really works. And what has been a certain, I would say, discount on our share price is going now, transforming itself into a premium.
So the market is starting to understand.
Market starts to believe.
Right.
Okay. And I think this is really transforming itself into share value, and therefore the increase in the share price. That, of course, makes me very happy. But there's something which is much more important. The organization is proud now. The organization has learned that they can manage such a big challenge. And I think this will put them on a different level for any new change that will come. I think that's extremely important for the organization.
That makes sense. Chris, what are you seeing as a result?
Well, when we look at, let's say, business benefits, we don't track, and it was a conscious decision, I think the right decision, that we wouldn't track Globe benefits separately. We have some group initiatives where we track efficiencies in white-collar productivity, blue-collar productivity, and so on. But what we're seeing is anecdotes and reports from the markets where Globe is enabling benefits in the area of best practices, whether either with or without the system. We're getting good reports in decision support, using the data and the information and systems within Globe to make better business decisions, and also using Globe now to help us transform our organization, as Peter was mentioning earlier, into the concept of the supply ship and agile fleet. With respect to the supply ship, Globe is the platform that we're using to develop shared services across the Nestle group, and we're rolling these out now worldwide, and these are running on the Globe platform. And now while you can do shared services without a common processes, data, and systems, you really lose out a lot on efficiencies and so on. And so this is really the perfect platform to go on.
One of the things that you've both been clear about is that you didn't want people to view Globe as a one-time project, that really this was about a commitment to continuous change.
Right.
How do you make sure that that happens, that people don't think, well, Globe is over, we did it, what do we do next? How do you keep that idea of continuous change in the minds of people?
Well, as I told you before, I mean, one of the things I'm happy about is that the people have learned now, and they start to believe themselves that they are able to continuously change, which is a change of mind and attitude which is important. Now, we know very well that the first phase of Globe was best practice in and within Nestle. The next step has to be best practice at the industry level. So we have immediately a new target in front of us, okay? And I think the organization understands that. This is now more easier to understand. When you say, look, we are now best in class within Nestle, next step is now we want to be best in class within the thing. We have to simplify. I think, which is obvious, when you have such a big project, perhaps we went a little bit too far in all the details. I think our company can run on a little bit simplified, and we have already started to do some simplified version of Globe for countries like Kenya or smaller countries and things like this. So that's the other one. And the last one is that change will always be with us. And what is best practice today will never be best practice tomorrow. So I think just by constantly challenging the company and putting the objective target a little bit further forward, I think we will keep Globe alive in its spirit, I would say.
Makes sense. Chris, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we have the platform that's in place now. It's a great platform to allow us to do that continuous improvement. And continuous improvement is one of the tenets of our company.
So we want to take some questions from, these questions actually came from audience members. Mm-hmm. And interestingly, Peter, you just touched on one of them when the question is around how do you make the GLOBE program practical or feasible in areas such as you mentioned, maybe in Africa or other parts of the world that might not be as ready for this kind of change?
Well, one of the most interesting experiences we had was we had one of the first volunteers was Pakistan. And, we were thinking, Pakistan, we had some pilot markets, one in every region, but suddenly Pakistan came up and we want to be, and we were really surprised. Well, it turned out that Pakistan was the one that, I would say, most efficiently and the shortest period introduced GLOBE and helped us really. First of all, even us, to improve GLOBE already there, and secondly, then afterwards, of course, we had the motivation for many, many other countries of the world.
So what do you attribute that?
Well,
I think a big part of it is that for these particularly smaller countries, let's say, and Pakistan's a great example, and we have others, that for them, what they saw in GLOBE was like gold. The best practices were fantastic. The systems were something they could never really afford on their own. And for them, then this is something that is a tremendous advantage. It's been harder for us, quite honestly, in some of the bigger countries, which have spent
more entrenched systems.
Exactly, more entrenched systems, very customized systems over time to get them to change. Although they all have, but I think that's a big advantage. And also another thing that we saw in Pakistan, which I think personally is one of the most rewarding, there was a lot of concern whether we'd be able to train some of the workforce in some of these countries, smaller countries, many of them illiterate, many of them never using a computer before, where the training began that this is a mouse. And for the people also it was quite intimidating. For many of these people, they were quite nervous to see GLOBE come in. There was a certain resistance. But when that's said and done, I think we have our biggest supporters in these countries where people feel that their lives, their jobs have become more responsible. They've learned new skills. And it makes me feel great to go to these countries and talk to the warehouse operators, the factory floor line workers. And
so to some extent, did some of those regions see it as a way to leapfrog and catch up with their sister organizations?
Yeah, they feel they go really to the most advanced of technology and processes that there is.
In one step.
In one step.
Yeah,
from a completely. And I think if you would see, like Chris was saying, if you would see the pride of those people, if they take you through a warehouse today, they show you how they manage, information technology, certainly in a better way than I can manage it. But it's fantastic, and the proud they are. And I think this has been enormous motivating for many other countries.
It's a great catalyst.
We are doing Kenya today, and I think countries like the Middle East, frankly speaking, don't consider them to be too difficult to do that.
Well, but we do have also an alternative system, as Peter had mentioned. In Kenya, we do have a lighter version, smaller system, particularly in those markets where the telecommunications is not reliable or it's too expensive, because we deliver the systems over a network. But in most cases, really, we're talking about 90% plus of the world, they're implementing the GLOBE processes, data, and systems.
That makes sense. We have time for one more quick question I wanted to ask about the idea of competitive advantage. It's sort of a fabled idea in the IT industry that what you do with technology can give your company this distinct advantage over competitors. Do you believe, and I know GLOBE is not purely an IT project, but do you believe GLOBE provides that kind of competitive advantage?
I'm absolutely convinced that GLOBE has catapulted us in a 5-year competitive advantage to most of the fast-moving consumer good companies. Because up to now, there was only one paradigm in our industry, and this is focus will give you operational efficiency. With GLOBE, we have been able to combine complexity, which is absolutely necessary in our industry where there are only local consumers, therefore very complex offering, with operational efficiency. So I think this is the most important competitive weapon that we have established in the last years.
Chris?
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Great. Well, we are out of time. I want to thank our guests today, Peter Brabeck, CEO, Chris, Executive Vice President. Thank you for joining us. I hope you'll join us again on January 18th when Change Artist goes live from Johnson & Johnson headquarters, where we'll be talking to Bill Weldon, the CEO, as well as Laverne Cowan.